Hello everyone and welcome to another most exciting game from the 2019 Norway Rapid Blitz Championship. It's Magnus Carlsen versus Wesley. And it seems that Magnus Carlsen has took it upon himself to play, a funky opening against every member of the championship. We already saw his game against Maxim Vashielagra, where he played b4 against that d6 Sicilian. Here is going to be again a very exciting, very old school opening against Wesley. So he played the Norwegian defense against Fabiana Caruana. He just that's what you do, obviously, when you're a world champion. But without further ado, let's get back to this game. Carlsen has the white pieces and he opens with e4. We have e5 and bishop to c4. So the bishop's opening, something Carlsen has been known for playing from time to time, especially when he was younger. Here we have knight to f6 and now d4. So it's a very old line. It was very popular played by Howard Staunton, and then later after him it was adopted by Frank James Marshall, but in modern days mostly played by Alexandra Kostenyuk. So here you could go knight captures on e4 and allow d captures on e5, but this is not as good for black as the line Wesley went for. Here we have e captures on d4, and now Carlsen proceeds with knight to f3. e5 isn't all that great because after e5 you can just go d5 and black is perfectly fine. So after e captures on d4 we have knight to f3, and now comes knight to c6. We have e5 now by Carlsen, and now d5. We have bishop to b5 and now knight to e4. So we've basically transposed into the two knights defense of the Italian. We have knight captures on d4. Now comes the bishop to c5, and here bishop to e3 defending. And here we have just castles by Wesley. Carlsen captures on c6 as the knight is no longer pinned. We have bishop captures, b captures, and now knight captures on c6 is a pretty big mistake, but it's interesting to mention that it was played in tournament games. This move is available 6 times in the database, but even though it seems like it's a nice in-between move for white because the black queen is under attack, black can just ignore that and play bishop captures on e3. And here, after knight captures on d8, you play bishop captures on f2, and now king e2 is really bad, but after king f1, just bishop to a6, and you will win back the queen. So the king has nowhere to go. After the queen blocks, queen d3, you will capture the queen, and after c captures, now you will go bishop to d4. It's a very nice forced line. Attack the b2 pawn here. You want to win the rook. So after knight to c3, you'll just go rook captures on d8. Now you get d captures on e4. D captures on e4, and now knight captures on e4. Bishop will capture on b2. You will have to move the rook. Rook e1, bishop captures here, and at the end of this very nice forcing line, we will get this position where black is up 2 pawns in a much better position. So all in all, should be winning. And out of the 6 games that are available in the database, black won 5-1. In one of them, white managed to get a draw. But here, of course, Carlsen is not interested in going for this. He castles here. And now bishop captures on d4. We have queen captures on d4, and now c5. Pushing Carlsen's queen back, queen to d3, and now bishop to f5. And here, Carlsen doesn't want his queen to remain on d3, to be available for all sorts of nasty discoveries. The knight can go to g3 to who knows where. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. No idea how that happened. But after this bishop to f5 move, I simply went ahead some 15 moves. But after this bishop to f5 move, Carlsen simply retreated, queen to e2. But it's interesting, this position has been reached before in the 1988 Belgrade Championship between Robert Zelčić and Svetozar Gligorić. And in that game, bishop captures on c5 was played, which is the strongest move recommended by the engine, but that was a classical game. So the rook is under attack, you have to move the rook, and then you will normally just continue the game. But here in a blitz game, Carlsen doesn't want to have his queen on this diagonal, so he just moves it with queen to e2, and now comes d4, pushing the bishop back. And here again, this position, this exact same position has been reached in 1967 Soviet Championship between Navednici and Noskov, and here bishop to f4 was played, and the black was able to win that game. But here Carlsen goes for f3, and now this is a new move, so as of now, as of move 13, we have a completely new game on our hands. So what do you do here? Obviously, trading doesn't really favor black. If you capture, capture, and capture, white can just develop the knight, knight c3, play the rook to d1, capture the pawn on e3, and it's going to be a nice position for white. So after this f3 move, Wesley just moves the knight back. We have knight to g5. Bishop captures on g5 with an attack on the queen. Queen captures on g5. And now you can't develop the knight to d2 because you will lose the c2 pawn, which would be very dangerous. It would create a passed d pawn. So Carlsen is forced to develop the knight in a different fashion. He goes the knight to a3. And now rook f to e8. Now the idea is bring this rook over to d8, go d5, attack this pawn, maybe even f6 will be an idea. We'll see, depending on what Carlsen plays, of course. We have rook 8 to e1 and now rook 8 to d8. Wesley simply continues with his plan, and here Carlsen doesn't like f4. f4 nicely guards the pawn and attacks the queen, but it does somewhat further weaken the king's side. So he refrains from it. He first plays rook to f2, a nice move, bringing yet another defender to the g2 pawn, and also if something like queen g6, then the c2 pawn is also protected one more time. Here we have rook d5 attacking the e5 pawn, and here again Carlsen doesn't like f4. f4 is a nice move, protects here, attacks the queen, so you would either see queen g6 or something like queen to d8, but instead of this f4 move, Carlsen goes queen to b5. Seems like a nice in-between move. You get out of this nasty pin on the e-file. Also, it comes with an attack on the rook here, but it simply doesn't work. Here, white has a problem. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the absolute best move for Wesley So in this position. I'll give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to find the correct answer, you are an excellent attacker of the queen with the bishop. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, bishop to d7. And now you see the problem. The bishop now forces the queen to move back as the rook defends the bishop, and now the e5 pawn is attacked 3 times, so you will not be able to defend it, and it is a very important pawn. So here Carlsen has to move. We have queen to a5, and now comes rook d captures on e5, already threatening to capture on e1. So rook e to f1, and now Wesley is not really interested in guarding his c pawn. He now goes into the attack. We have rook to e2. So what do you do here? We have queen captures on c7 by Carlsen, hoping to maybe bring the queen over to g3, maybe to help out with the defense. Also, the queen from c7 guards f4, so maybe pawn to f4, also an idea. But here, Wesley doesn't give him a chance to breathe. He plays rook captures on f2. And now, if you capture with the rook, it's over. Just rook e1 check, rook blocks, queen e3 check, king has to move, and then rook captures here will be checkmate. So you have to capture with the king here, and that's a bit of an issue. Here, Carlsen captured king captures on f2, and Wesley played queen to e3 check. So what do you do here? Carlsen played king to g3, and here Wesley repeated queen to g5 check. We have king to f2, queen to e3 check, king to g3, and here after queen to g5, it was in this position that Wesley So and Magnus Carlsen agreed to a draw. Problem is, Wesley is completely winning in this position, but on the other hand, he has some 5 seconds on the clock to Carlsen's 50, I believe, and he didn't manage to find the correct line to beat Magnus Carlsen from this position. But you have all the time in the world. Well, not all, but you have time to pause the video. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the line that was missed here. So king to f2 was played, and then this was the position where they agreed to a draw. But yeah, try to pause the video and find the correct line here. I'll give you a couple of seconds as usual. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent pusher of pawns. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the problem is the correct move, and which will soon be revealed, if you have to deal with your bishop being attacked. And the problem is if you play something like bishop to e6, rook e1, and white doesn't really have all that many problems now. The bishop is pinned, you can go knight c4, you can bring the knight into the game. If the bishop moves, of course, rook captures rook is the idea, and it's not a pleasant position anymore. I mean, it's still pleasant for black, but not as pleasant for a blitz game. So here, the move you had to find is actually d3. So, being an excellent pusher of pawns that you are, you probably saw that. And now, if queen captures bishop, now the e2 square is guarded. So, just rook e2 check, king g1, queen captures on g2 will be checkmate. And every other line is also winning for black. So what other ways are there to defend? For example, sorry, the queen is not there. For example, if you try to get out of this idea by playing g4, it still won't work. Now you play d2, and now it's again a very very nice line. Queen h4 check now is the idea, and whatever you play, let's say you capture here, again just queen h4 check, king will have to move, and now rook d8, the queen guards the rook guards the queening square, so everything is nicely connected. Whatever you do, you will either move the queen and then d1 comes, which will of course end in mate, as black will have 2 queens, or you will capture here, black will capture back, and again you have a queen against a knight and a rook, and also you're threatening to bring another queen into the game, a completely winning position. And on the other hand, after this very nice d3 move, what else can you do instead of, let's say, grabbing this and playing g4? You might try something like I don't know, you might try something like f4, but still, again, the idea is the same, just rook e2 check. You haven't really prevented anything. Queen g2 captures, so not an option. So after d3, white does not have a good reply. So whatever you play, you're either getting checkmated or you will suffer severe material loss. If queen g3, also queen e3 is mate in 1, g2 and f1 are covered. So you know, it's just a wonderful position to draw, as you are completely lost, but you know, it's how it is. You always have to manage your time correctly. You can't allow yourself to you know, be brought down to 5 seconds like Wesley did here, and he didn't have enough time to finish this game as he should have, as he has you know, played better than Magnus here. But yeah, that's also something. But yeah, as they say, you know, fortune favors the brave, the strong, the bold, the whatnot. So here Carlsen again escapes, you know, the jaws of death by in a seemingly unplayable position. But it is playable due to severe time trouble by Wesley. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it, and for those of you who perhaps haven't seen the previous video, I will show the standings one more time. Here are the standings. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave won with 7.5 points, a point and a half ahead of Levon Arun and Magnus Carlsen. Then with 5 we have Shahriar Mamedyarov, with 4.5 Ding Liren, Yu Yangyi, and Wesley So with 3.5, and then with 3 points Fabiano Caruana, Vishwanathan Anand, and Alexander Grishuk. So here, I don't know if I will be showing any more games from the Blitz event, but maybe I will, we'll see, as the Classical is starting now, so I do have to prepare for that. But if you have any of your own favorites, do use hashtag suggestion, and I will of course check it out, and maybe if we find the time, show that one as well. So yeah, I would like to thank Piotr Trzak, Paul Adamski, Chris Picard, Vasily Kerov, and Eileen Zapata for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with some more interesting content. And for those of you who are interested, we are still going over your manga suggestions, and I will keep you updated as soon as we have a definitive answer. So yeah, thank you all. I will see you soon. Have an excellent rest of your day, and don't forget to enjoy the live coverage of the Norway Classical event. See you soon.